Hello folks, hope things are going well for you and you're having a good end to your week. It is the last video today in our big week of 5 straight days of Hobby Nightmares. If you appreciated it or you like what I do, please subscribe. The button is down below. A few of you have actually messaged me saying, oh yeah, I didn't realise I wasn't unsubscribed and I wasn't really subscribed to you yet. Well, now you do. Now I'm here, now you can have a little chat to me. And you can get involved with the Discord, which is also down below. It is free. You don't need to be a part of the Patreon or anything like that to go and get some support and some love over on the Discord. So make sure you head over there and have some fun. We're all about mental health over here in the hobby. Now, let's jump into our Hobby Nightmare, shall we? With Hugh, who says, hello North. Hope you're doing well. And thank you so much for reading my last story. The guy who accidentally bought the loaded dice, Harry. Quick point on him. We've had no issues with him at all since, and he's actually become a good friend of mine, which plays into the story later. That's good. I think that's my advice as well, is that you should have given him a bit of slack at the time. So I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did so. Now on to the story. This past weekend, I went to my first tournament. Nothing official, just 16 guys from my local club at a member's house on a Saturday. With it being my first time and still being fairly new to the game, I was a bit nervous to say the least. Luckily, a few longbeards from the club helped me build my list, and I was now feeling more confident. I didn't have all the models for this list, but my new friend Harry was very kindly taught me some of his models. Okay, so he lent you some of his stuff, that's cool. The day comes and I turn up bright and early for a 9 AM start. We set up for my first game against a Custodes player, and I explained my army. It was one of the guys who would help build the list, so it was a short and funny affair. Some of the models I had borrowed from Harry were kit bashed, with one of them being his blade guard, who he'd fitted together with a spear, thunderhammer, and dual swords. Harry had told me to tell everybody that I'd be measuring everything from these guys from the base, as the spear guy added about half an inch of measurement, and he didn't want to abuse anything. Okay, fair enough, fair enough. I often think base to base is probably the best way to do it anyway, but. My first 2 games went on, and I explained this to my first 2 opponents who didn't have any issues at all. I lost in both games, but they were pretty close. They were also great games, and I had a load of fun, so I don't mind losing at any part of these games at all. Okay, that's good, that's good. Now comes the drama. My last opponent was, and I can only say, called Dave. Dave wasn't a member of the club, but a friend of the guy hosting the tournament, so had got an invite to come along. We started off and everything seemed good. He was friendly and started taking notes when I explained my army, which I thought, brilliant. I'm not going to have any gotcha moments later on. I then went first, and on turn 1, with an Ironstorm detachment of Dark Angels, and it started very well. Well, for me, I say, as Dave proceeded to have the worst dice luck I've ever seen. He must have failed every single save and feel no pain wound roll. He had some Blood Angels, and I proceeded to kill half of his army on turn 1. This obviously switched something in his head, as when we went onto his turn, he started to roll his dice behind the scenery on his side of the table. Having listened to your videos and knowing what this meant, I kindly asked him not to do that and to roll them in the open. To this he replied, "Mate, I'm going to beat you, I don't need to cheat." Big words from somebody with half their army back in their carrier case already, I know. I just said, "Mate, I don't know you, just roll them where I can see them, please." He then started to roll in the open, but making sure to roll into terrain or vehicles to pick up the dice before I could see them. Again, I asked him not to do that and offered for him to use my dice tray, but he refused, saying, "I don't want to taint my dice," quote unquote. I was getting rather bored of the whole show at this point. Yeah, this is a dude who's just salty, dude. He's trying to cheat. So this is a guy whose luck has gone against him so badly that he now feels he's within his rights to cheat, right? Listen, we've all been tempted. And if you haven't, stop lying to yourself. We've all been tempted. When the game's gone so against us that we think it's really unfair, you know you've been tempted to cheat. To readdress the balance. Because part of your mind's thinking it'd make for a better game for the other guy too, if I started getting some rolls that actually were useful to me, you know? But at the end of the day, it's a slippery slope. As soon as you start down it, it's hard to get off, you know? Anyway. We get to the end of his turn 1, and he's done pretty much nothing to my army. I had also used my Colourless Assassin to double the CP cost of a command reroll for him. Remember this for later. Turn 2, and where the nightmare comes to its climax, I start and have an okay shooting phase, but nothing special. I move some units into charge range with his. One of these units is Harry's Blade Guard. I go into the charge phase, and I need a 4-inch charge from the Blade Guard to get in. I roll a 3. I command reroll and roll double 1s. Note, I had measured this from the base, and explained this to him as if I had measured it from the spear, I would have been in. When I failed the charge, he started aggressively clapping his hands and chuckling. I said, well, oh well, and moved on. Please drink some tea if you need to. No, I'm okay for now, but I will do at the end of this nightmare. We got onto his turn, and he decided to leave the unit in front of the Blade Guard where they were. We got to his charge phase, and he tried to charge his assault intercessors into my Blade Guard. That was still a 4-inch charge, which I told him. He proceeded to roll a 3. He then remeasured the charge, which was on his side of the board, and declared it to be a 3-inch charge because of my guy's spear. I again told him how I said I was measuring everything from the base to keep things fair for him. He told me I hadn't and called over his mate the organiser. He explained in his terms what had happened, and the organiser asked me if I had explained it at the start, to which I said yes. And Dave said, no you didn't. You must have forgotten that, whilst using air quotes. Oh my god, so he said, you must have forgotten that, quote unquote, whilst using air quotes in midair. Dude, this guy's a fucking douchebag. I was dumbfounded, but luckily my first opponent of the day was on the table next to us, and jumped in saying how I had explained it to him in his game, and that he was pretty sure he'd heard me saying it at the start of my game with Dave. Luckily, the organiser sided with me and told Dave he had failed the charge. The organiser moved on, and Dave did not look happy. He then announced, oh, command reroll. He re-rolled the charge, getting a higher than a 3. I reminded him that since he had only 1 command point, and I had doubled the CP the cost for that strat, he couldn't do it. He looked up, midway through moving his models, and said, oh well, I've rolled it now, I just won't get a CP next turn. I again told him that's not how it works, and told him to move his models back. He then stood up, crossed his arms, and said, no. At this point, I lost all will to play against this mid-40s man-child, and told him I wasn't going to roll anything in that combat then. He then said, fine, I'll roll it for you, starting his attacks and rolling my saves behind his terrain again, and announced with glee that he had wiped my unit. What, with a unit of assault intercessors? Dude, I don't know much about 40k, right? You know, but the Grey Knight and Space Marines rules, I fucking know. There is no way, if that's a 5 or even 10-man unit of assault intercessors charging into a 3-man unit of Blade Guard, unless he's rolled extremely well and you've rolled extremely poorly, there's no way he's wiped the unit. Absolutely no way whatsoever. I told him again, no, we're not doing that combat, and for him to move on. He shrugged and said, don't get salty now, and proceeded to reach for my models. Okay, guy, I mean, he's in the wrong here. He's in the wrong here, right? But for you to just say, we're not doing that combat, let's move on to the rest of the game, that's the wrong thing to do. Because what you're doing now, you're playing tit for tat. You're denying him what he wants to do, and you want to move on to something else, right? No, you just stop playing. You just stop playing altogether. You don't say we're not doing that particular combat because you're not doing it the way I want you to do it. You say, no, we're not doing it. We're not playing at all. You're trying to cheat, and you're not playing the spirit of the game at all. So we're not playing at all, right? I'm done. Will I win then? Okay, yeah. Congratulations, you win. Yeah, the only win you got today was by making your opponent tap out because you couldn't stand your toxicity anymore. Well done. Well done. And move away. And leave it alone. Alright? Now, I'm a fairly big guy and had anger issues when I was younger, but all is fine since. I had tried to remain calm with all this bullshit so far, but when he reached for not only my models, but the models my friend Harry had lent me, I flipped. I almost shouted, "If you touch my models, I will fucking smack you." He then, locking eyes with me with some little grin on his face, reached down into the combat and picked up my blade guard with the spear, still locking eyes with me, and then dropped it on the side of the table with a little "oops" escaping his mouth as he did so, and I heard the sound of 1,000 plastic pieces scattering over the hard floor. Okay, the ram has touched the wall. It's my favourite saying. It was in HBO's Rome, right? The ram has touched the wall. No mercy. At this point, he has crossed the line. You're allowed to get physical at this point. Alright? He's touched your property. He smashed it on the floor. You are now allowed to get physical with this guy. Okay? You are allowed to defend your property. That's what you're allowed to do. There are some lines you don't cross. You do not cross. Some people in life have gone through life without getting a smack in the mouth for bad behaviour, and it shows. So maybe this is his time to get one. A wake-up call. If you're in your 40s and you still haven't learned, probably is that as well. I then boiled over. I ran around the side of the table with a fist raised. All I could think about was how I was going to explain this to my mate, that he'd lent me his models and I destroyed one of them. As I rounded the table, he turned and shrieked, almost collapsing onto the ground. This attracted the attention of everybody in the room. And all they saw was I was standing over him, a fist raised. Not a good look. I paused when I saw everybody looking at me and looked down, confused as he seemed to be, trying to pick up all the pieces, whilst almost crying. I then noticed all the pieces I could see were red. I looked back at the table and saw all my Blade Guard models were there. By accident, he had picked up his own model and smashed it on the floor. Yes! The organiser ran over and unluckily listened to what I had to say before turning around, shouting at his friend that he was being a twat and telling him if he wasn't gone in the next 5 minutes, he would personally kick him out forcefully. Dave grabbed his models, chucked them all in a case and ran out, never looking at me. The organiser apologised and told me I'd get a 100-0 win because of Dave. While I didn't win any games, I still had fun before I played Dave, but I can't say this hasn't tainted my first tournament experience. I have been invited to an 8-man tournament in a few weeks' time with the same group of guys from the club, where I've been promised no Daves will be coming. However, I am still unsure. Please let me know your thoughts, and thank you so much for reading another one of my stories. Have a great day. The Emperor protects. Hugh. Okay. I would say Dave's done the right thing in inviting you again, so go. Dude, listen, there's no reason. It's not their fault. This guy invited the wrong dude to one of his events, alright? He tried to do a guy a favour. He probably doesn't know him very well, but he's one of his friends, his acquaintances, right? He's tried to do him a favour. It's blown up in his face. That's not his fault. That's not the tournament organiser's fault, alright? So if they've invited you to another session, another tournament, this means that, you know, they didn't hold it against you. They could have. They could have said, listen, that guy's a psycho, right? They could have easily have put you in their do not play box, but they haven't. So you need to take yes for an answer and go and play with these guys. Don't you dare start saying, oh, well, no, I'm not going because that's tainted the hobby for me. No, don't be ridiculous, right? Don't be ridiculous. This is one guy out of the ether who's come in and he's one of the worst 40k players that you've ever come across. Fine, but they are in the hobby. Everybody will face at least one in their hobby career. You faced yours now, and the other guys in that club seem pretty cool and are happy with you, and once more took your side when it looked like you were in the wrong. Right? They still took your side. These are cool guys. Don't you dare fuck them off and be a little coward and don't go because of what this Dave did. All right. Make sure you go, because hobby friends are very, very, very rare. Especially ones we can actually go and just have fun with. You know what I mean? So don't you dare. You go to that other event with them, and you have fun. Alright? That's what you do. Don't be ridiculous. Don't be like, oh, I'm not going because that Dave soured one day for me. No. That's not the organizer's fault. He tried to do a mate a favor by inviting him to an event, and that mate turned out to be a prick. It happens. Move on. If you've been invited, I'm annoyed because you're thinking of turning down an invite. This is something I would love to happen to me. Do you know what I mean? There aren't many people around me in the local area who play the hobby. I would love to be in your shoes, so don't you dare walk away from this. These seem like cool guys, so go. That's my advice. Anyway. Tom says, before I get into Tom's nightmare, I have one thing that I need to just get off my chest a little bit. It's not a huge thing, and please don't think I'm coming down on you or anything like that. But if you're sending in hobby nightmares, please make sure that you've read over them at least once. Okay? At least once. Just read over them, and any glaring mistakes that Word picks up, or you know, or that say Google Docs picks up, please make sure that you amend it and you just read over it once before you send it to me, because I've come across loads of really cool hobby nightmares recently that I've not been able to read out. I put them to the bottom of the pile because it would take me 20 minutes to go through and amend it so I can actually read it out without losing my place. You know what I mean? Reading badly punctuated essays takes forever if you're reading them out loud. It takes forever. And I've got to do these in one take normally because of work and scheduling and stuff. So I can't read out your hobby nightmare if it's poorly written. Okay? I mean poorly written to the point where I'm going to get my brain jumbled up even reading it, because there's no punctuation, or there's so many spelling mistakes that are easy to amend. There was some guy the other day who spelt my name wrong. Right? He called me Noff at the start of the email. Hello, Noff. And I was like... And it was riddled with it all the way through. I understand if you got dyslexia. I understand if you got any sort of things. But just bear with me, guys. I can't read those out because it's going to take me a long... Or at least I will read them out, but I'm going to have to wait until I'm on a weekend and I've got some time free so I can go through and I can almost amend your work for you. You know, correct all your spelling and your punctuation and then read it. That takes 20 minutes to half an hour at a time. I don't have time most of the time. So if you want your hobby nightmare read out, read over it yourself. And if you got dyslexia or anything like that, I completely understand, dude. I'm not shaming you at all. Go to somebody you trust and ask them to read over it for you and go through it and just or if you're lazy, just go into Google Docs or Office and, you know, right click and amend all of the things that it squiggles underline, because most of the time it's right, and even if it's not right, it's readable. You know, to do that. Anyway, Tom says, "Hey North, I've only just discovered your channel recently, and it's been rather fun to listen to as an ex-retail worker myself, with more than my fair share of rather unbelievable war stories that, to be frank, nobody would believe unless they were there themselves. However, I thought I would share my first experience at Games Workshop, which was more than enough to put me off the hobby completely until I rediscovered it during COVID lockdowns. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My story starts in 1998. I had just moved into a new neighbourhood, and I had just befriended the rich kids next door. Upon touring their massive home, I was taken into the war room. Okay. I have never seen anything like it. Shelves and shelves of Space Marines, Chaos Space Marines, Orcs and Eldar. Stacks on stacks of White Dwarf magazines dating back to the 80s, and two huge gaming tables that more resembled dioramas than gaming tables. The trees and buildings and trenches were all built into the table. I don't think I had breathed out in over 5 minutes, as my watering eyes were just one feature fixed to the permanently glued state awe of my 9-year-old face. Okay. The two brothers were quite proud of the literal worlds that they had and their father had crafted for them. I sat and watched them paint for hours. They offered to lend me some of the, probably vintage, copies of White Dwarf. I went home that night and pored over pages and pages of illustrations, battle reports, painting featurettes, and focus articles. 40k, Blood Bowl, fantasy, and epic Titanicus battles. I was hooked. The following week, that is like a trap place, that, isn't it? You've been hit with the 50 Shades of Grey, you know, this is my playroom. thing. The following weekend, it turned out that the brothers had one too many boxes of the recently released 40k 3rd edition box set. Their mum and dad had bought them everything in threes, and had agreed to sell me the spare copy. This would be my birthday present, as we never had much money growing up. My journey had begun. 3rd edition was the Dark Eldar and Black Templars, right? I'm pretty certain it was. I think that was my edition as well. That was my first edition. That's cool. Awesome. Falling in love with the Sons of Sanguinius, I decided to go with Blood Angels, mostly because of the two brothers had spare red paint pots. I was relatively artistic and had decided to try my hardest to match the quality of the two brothers who had been painting for years. Hours of trying my hardest and carefully attempting to master the art of the miniature painter had led me to the point where I could be proud of what I had done. I had 10 Space Marine Blood Angels, all individually named on the bottom of their bases, Cringe, and a land speeder I could call my own. The Dark Eldar would have to wait. All I had to do now was learn the game. By the way, I wasn't North saying Cringe there, it was him. I'm not being a dick. All I had to do now was learn the game. Being a 9-year-old kid in Liverpool with dyslexia usually meant I was just labelled as thick by most educators in the 1990s. Yeah, me too, mate. Me too. So, I don't have dyslexia. It turns out I was just lazy. So when I was a kid, my mum was convinced I had dyslexia because I just hated school so much. And all of my work was done wrong. But she didn't realise I was doing it wrong on purpose because I just hated school and I was doing it out of spite. I was a little dickhead when I was younger. But one thing I did come across quite a lot of the time was when teachers were told I might be dyslexic, they kind of did just forget about me back in the day. They just sat me at the back of the class, out the way, and just told me to shut the fuck up, essentially. It sounds like that's what you've gone through as well. So if it was like that for me and I didn't really have dyslexia, I can only imagine how hard it would have been for a kid in Liverpool back then to have to deal with shit like that. So I'm very sorry about that. That's why I said before, yeah, I'm not judging you. If you send me in a Hobby Nightmare that's poorly written, have somebody read over it. There's no judgment in it, mate. I just don't have time to do it myself, you know? This one wasn't too bad, actually. This one that you sent me wasn't too bad, but I could tell that you were either dyslexic or had something going on because there was a few spelling mistakes in here. But nowhere near one of the worst that I've read. Absolutely not. It's those that I need to get. I need you guys to, like, you know, maybe look over it twice or give to somebody else to look over it for you. Just a quick once over before you send it in. You know, because again, I wish I had the time. I wish this was my job, but it isn't. You know. But yeah, that sucks, and I'm sorry you had to go through that. Attempting to learn a game whose backbone is built on a foundation of comprehension and basic numeracy skills was going to be a challenge for me. The two brothers assured me not to fret, as the store they attend in town had beginner weekend classes. I had convinced my brother to let me go to one, and strangely enough, my mother, to let me go to one, and strangely enough, she agreed. I don't know why you wouldn't agree. It's back then especially, a phenomenal game for a young man to get into, to start learning basic skills, or numeracy skills, communication skills, literacy skills, all these other things that are going to set him up really well for life. If my son came to me, or my daughter came to me and said, I want to do Warhammer, even today I'd be like, yes. But I'd be more reticent today than I would be back in the day. Yeah, back in the day, phenomenal. Anyway. Saturday had come, and we hopped on the 75 Arriva bus to the city centre with my mother and the two brothers. I had loaded all of my 40k stuff into my backpack the night before in anticipation. The bus ride had never felt so long, but it was all worth it. Games Workshop tables of terrain, metal music, painting tables, huge posters, seemingly endless rows of blister packs containing pewter minis. The display cases were filled to the brim with the best painted models I'd ever seen. This was my Graceland. I knew where every penny I would ever earn would probably end up here. Well, that was the old Lord Street store. I know where you went. That was an amazing store with amazing people in it. Just gutted it's gone. I'm gutted Games Workshop's not the same anymore. You know? That used to be Games Workshop. Let me read that again for you, right? This is what it used to be like in Games Workshop. Games Workshop had tables full of terrain, metal music, painting tables, huge posters, seemingly endless rows of blister packs and models containing pewter minis. The display cases were filled to the brim with the best painted models I'd ever seen. This was my Graceland. Mate, that's what Games Workshop used to be like. Alright? Swap the pewter minis out for plastic ones and metal ones, and that's what I was into when I was a kid. The two brothers told me to go to the till for the booked starter game, and they went off to their book table. So excited and nervous to begin, I spoke to the guy behind the till. Let's call him Knuckle Hair Ned. I nervously said, I'm here for the beginners class. He boomed back and to me, speak up, maggot. That's so funny. That's so funny. He boomed back at me, speak up, maggot. I repeated myself with a nervous demeanour, to which he said, there are no beginners, only fresh meat for the grinder. So what are you, a maggot or dead meat? Not knowing he was an Imperial Guard fanboy, I didn't know how to process this question. Well, don't stand there in a puddle of piss, mate. I was only fucking joking. Beginners' tables are over there. Step to it, maggot. Listen, if I was a kid and I came across this guy, he would be my hero. I would be like, this is the guy. Can you be my dad? Like, it'd just be like one of those if I was a kid. Oh my god. I know it sounds cringe now, but to a kid who loves Warhammer, that would be, oh my god. Again, but if you're of a nervous disposition, maybe this would be a bit too much for you. That's just so funny. I gingerly walked up to the table with some of the other beginners' kits. Knuckle Hair Ned ordered everyone to pull out our 2 boxes or 2 squads of 5 Marines. Seeing the models these beginners were pulling out automatically made mine look like they had been painted with a toilet brush. My heart was already sinking. I opened my pack and started removing my stuff to get to the Marines at the bottom. Out came my jacket, my core rules, my sandwiches. Come on. While we're all young, you little ant piss. You little ant piss. Boomed Knuckle Hair Ned. This startled me, and my land speeder nearly fell out of the bag and smashed, so I made the mistake of setting it on the table to avoid any casualties. The room may well have gone silent, and the sound of the land speeder's clear bass touching the tabletop may as well have sounded like a cannon going off. Get that piss poor painted shit excuse for a land speeder off my fucking table. Wow. Okay, yeah, this guy's crossed the line. This Ned dude. Again, at the start that was funny, but this isn't right. I felt like I had a lump of the size of a tennis ball in my throat. I don't know who the this can't be real. This can't be real. I don't know who the fuck you think you are coming to a beginner's game expecting to run kit like that against somebody who doesn't know any better. I was welling up as if I'd been shouted at like this before, and I said, I wasn't going to. I don't want to hear your shitty little excuses. I know your type. I won't tolerate that kind of shit in my store, at my table, in my sessions. So you put a Land Raider on the table and you got annoyed. Okay. Land Raiders were pretty powerful, but, you know. Anyway. Is it a Land Raider or a Land Speeder you put down? You've used both names here. Anyway. I didn't know what to be more scared of. The loud screaming, the aggressive lunging, or the huge vein sticking out of his temple. He aggressively pointed to the painting tables and screamed, "You'll go sit over there until turn 2, and you can contemplate the severity of your shitty actions." This isn't unlike the insane outburst Will Ferrell had at the end of Zoolander when he was ranting about Derek's looks being all the same thing. That's when I saw how awful sitting at the painting table was going to be. Knuckle Hair Ned addressed the other Games Workshop employee sat painting at the painting table. Bugsy, if he fucking moves, tell him he's banned for life. Now, Bugsy was a creature I don't ever wish to share the proximity with for as long as I live. The only thing more disturbing than his aroma was his appearance. This gangly golem-like creature only said, "Don't touch a fucking thing. I've a process, and I refuse to suffer any fools." Limbs that didn't seem to contain any bone stretched out, dipping his brush into water in a manner resembling Nosferatu. But upon further inspection, Bugsy was in possession of one of my all-time hated icks. Long fingernails. No, not guitar-playing fingernails. Mate, I don't... Okay, right, I'm gonna have a fucking rant here. Listen, if you're a man and you've got long fingernails, and you're like a cross-dresser, or a transvestite, or a trans person, you're a fucking dirty prick. Use a guitar pick for your guitar, cut your nails. It's disgusting. It's really, really off-putting. It's alright for... I'm going to tell you now, it's alright for women to do it. Do you know why? Because they've been brought up to clean their nails thoroughly. That's why they've got long... they can have long nails because most of them clean them. Are obsessive about it. Don't be coming at me with your Cruella de Vil hands, alright? There's no excuse. Cut your fucking nails. It's disgusting. It's one of my chief icks. Just like this guy. It's one of my chief things. If I see that, you're a dirty bastard. You go in my head as a dirty bastard. I don't give a shit if you play guitar. The amount of guys who've said that to me, yeah, well, I play guitar. I don't give a shit, you smelly bastard. I don't give a shit, right? The best guitarists in the world play with picks. They do. You see them doing it all the time. The best guitarists in the world play with picks. You're just a smelly bastard who can't be arsed trimming his nails. That's all. Or, just as bad, you want everybody to know that you play guitar. That's where you got your extra long fingernails. What a prick. What a prick. Cut your nails. Stop being a prick. Smelly, horrible, looks terrible. It's one of my chief icks. I don't like it. It's just disgusting, man. Cut your nails. Alright? Again, I'm sorry if you feel attacked by that. But, yeah, not my thing at all. If I'm having a pint with somebody and I've just met them and they've got these long nails, I immediately put them in the dirty bastard bin in my head. Alright, dirty bastard, don't want to be around him. Right? Or, you know, a really chauvinistic, over-the-top, arrogant, look-at-me guitarist. You know, who's not even very good at guitar, but he feels the need to show it off because he grows his fingernails. Go away. Go away. Just go away. He's probably got one of these, you know, ridiculous nicknames as well. They insist everybody calls him. My name's Pyro. Is it, mate? No, it's not, mate, is it? It's Clive. Your name's Clive. You know. My name's Bugsy. No, it's not, mate, is it? It's not Bugsy, is it, mate? No. No, it's not. No. It's Simon. Your name's Simon. Cut your nails, you prick. Bugsy wasn't even touching the model with his fingers. Oh, God, no! The Space Marine receiving its Black Templar paint job was being held aloft exclusively by his 2 to 3 inch long fingernails, with his thumbnail being used as a mixing palette of sorts. Ew! Oh no. It reminds me of have you guys ever seen the Baelith from Berserk being held by that gangly hand with the long fingernails? Yeah, reminds me of that. Oh my god. I had found something that would haunt my dreams for the next 26 years. Oh my god. I've included a small cartoon sketch of the creature they call Bugsy. Again, I'm on my other computer, mate, so I can't get to that right now. Only the sound of Knuckle Hair Ned screaming, "Oi, Speeder Boy! We're all fucking waiting on you!" snapped me out of the horror I was beholding. I approached the table and placed my Marines onto the deployment zone and was told to get a move on. I said I don't know what to do, I said. Ned began flogging himself in the face with the core rules and said, "It's turn 2. We all know what we're doing by now. What's your fucking excuse?" I said, "You made me sit over there. I can't see what's going on." The vein returned to his face and the volume increased. "Am I not loud enough? Am I not clear enough? You can hear me all the way back there, can't you?" He shouted to the other tables, who all agreed. "It just comes down to you being a... Oh my god. It just comes down to you being a bit thick, doesn't it, mate? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure you hear that a lot at school, don't you? Thus, this game is for smart people. People who can focus. People who can strategize. And for fuck's sake, people who can learn to fucking paint." Gesturing at my models. Dude, this can't be real. This can't be real. I refuse to believe a cunt like this existed. Sorry. You know, I'm going to read the rest of this, but I'm going to put it down to your child mind back then being a bit influenced by what was going on around you. You know what I mean? Maybe this guy was a prick. Maybe. But this is cartoon level prick. Right? If this did happen... Guys listening to this, if this did happen, I think we found the worst person ever. In terms of Games Workshop staffer, I think we found our worst hobbyist ever a few weeks ago, right? He's in the Hall of Fame. I think this guy's in the Hall of Fame. He's in Hobby Room 101, right? As the worst Games Workshop staffer ever. We've had people being ignorant or being corporate shills. This guy's just a fucking bully. He bullies children. Let that sink in for a bit. Ugh. He turned to the two brothers who were watching along with the entire store, as well as some passers-by on the street. "Who the hell is this kid? Is he with you?" To which the two brothers shook their heads and said in unison, "No." Wow. Wow. Needless to say, a 9-year-old me welled up and the tears quietly swelled down my face. Of course they did, man. There's nothing to be ashamed of there. I quietly packed up my models and walked out of the store crying, only to hear Ned addressing the store as I was leaving. "Sorry it had to come to that, everybody. You just got to nip these things in the bud before they ruin this hobby for everybody." I sat on the bench crying until my mother came back to find me. Upon me telling her, "Please go in there and wring his neck, come on." Upon telling her what had happened, she was more angry at me for swearing when quoting what Ned had said to me. She said there's no way that this had happened. "I'm sure you're blowing this all out of proportion." She went into the store and addressed Ned, who politely said, "Oh no, madam, there's been a mix-up. Your son wanted to use models that were far too advanced for a beginner's class, and he was politely informed to remove it. I just think he had difficulty understanding the difference between beginner's gameplay and intermediate gameplay." Hearing this, I got so upset and left because my mother lapped up the entire story. I ran back onto the bench, just wishing the day to be over, shaking past myself. Okay. Alright, mate. I'm gonna be on your side here. I'm gonna be on your side because I don't want to be yet another person who is like doubting you and saying it didn't happen. Alright? So I'm gonna come down on your side and say this happened. Alright? In the comment section you do what you want to do, but I'm gonna believe this guy. Alright, okay? I've had parents like this around me. And my mum was also like this. I love her to pieces. But she was also like this. She didn't get my hobbies at all. And still doesn't. Doesn't understand them. You know? Whether it be computer games, whether it be anything. Doesn't understand them. And when shit like this used to go on with me and in my my hobbies, if I ever had something like this, she would always assume the worst of me and assume the best of the person on the other end of the scope. Do you know what I mean? So if I had an argument with somebody, she would always like assume the worst in me and assume the best in them. You know, not a nice place for you to be in. I get it. So that's the one thing that got me to come back onto your side here, was when she believed her story and lapped it up. Again, because she's not doing it maliciously. She's not doing it like being irritated, like because she hates you. She's not doing it that way. My mum used to do the same thing, People would lie about me when I was a kid, and she'd lap it up. She'd go, "Oh, yeah, of course, yes. He's disruptive. Of course he is, yes. Right? Yeah. I was once barred from a school disco, right? Because bullies had tied me up on the railings by my tie, right? And the school had said, because the school, I was a Protestant kid from a Protestant family. I was in a Catholic school. Didn't go down very well. The school fucking didn't like me at all. And I didn't like them right back. So I was disruptive once or twice, don't get me wrong. And I did answer back sometimes when they were being fucking ridiculous with me. And I'd just lose it with them. And this is when I was a kid. I've always been quite mature in the way that I think. And I've been an old soul, basically. I was hung up on my tiptoes, basically, by my tie on the school railings, and they told my mum that I'd done that to myself, despite all of the monitors, the adults who watch over the kids at lunchtime, despite all them telling them, no, bullies did that to him. We saw it and we stopped it. Right? They told my mother. The teachers told my mother that I'd done it to myself, and she believed them. Right? And I was then barred from the school disco. Yeah. So, again, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. There's nothing more frustrating. Me reading that then, I sort of nearly welled up. I had this feeling in my chest then, because I know you're feeling, mate. I know how you're feeling. So hopefully that helped. That I've gone through it too. So if you still I think you are still dealing with this trauma now, to be honest with you. It doesn't seem like it's that traumatic to people. It's not like you were there at a bomb threat or you weren't beaten up or anything. But your own parents not having your back like this is very, very, very damaging to a kid. It is. I know from experience. Alright? Okay. I never stepped foot into a Games Workshop for years, except once where I was inspecting the models in the display, only to see a vampire-like member of staff moving towards me in the reflection of the case, as if he was in a conveyor belt with his fingers joined, like Richmond from the It Crowd, looking to purchase Sigmar's most gruesome forces of the undead. To me, swiftly replying, "No, mate, I'm fine," as I left the store. Okay, that's fucking ridiculous. My mother soon joined me, where she had a Games Workshop bag. She said, "The nice man explained to me that if you want to play intermediate leveled games, you can book tables and play, and then you won't need one of these. We can't really afford it, but it will have to be a Christmas present for you." Inside the bag was a Land Raider tank, which the snake had upsold her on, in the middle of all of his lies. I looked back at the shop and stood in the doorway, and Ned was winking and making a cooking sound. What's a cooking sound? I don't know what you mean. The two brothers barely spoke to me ever again, and were frankly put off by the idea of ever playing. And I think you've lost it here, mate, because your writing's all over the place. The two brothers barely spoke to me ever again, and were frankly put off by the idea of ever playing with me ever again. Okay. I never stepped foot. I'm gonna have to read this paragraph again too. I never stepped foot into a Games Workshop for years, except once where I was inspecting the models in the display, only to see a vampire-like member of staff moving towards me in the reflection of the case, as if he was in a conveyor belt with his fingers joined, like Richmond from the It Crowd, looking to purchase Sigmar's most gruesome forces of the undead, sir. To me, swiftly replying, "No," as I left the store. However, I recently visited the Liverpool store to be awkwardly greeted by a nice lad who looked like he was being forced to interact with me by the manager in the back. Yeah, he was. I'm telling you now he was. Yeah, I'm telling you now he was. To which I said to the nice lad, "Blink twice if you're being held against your will," gesturing to his trainer. Lol. Lovely stuff, all in all. I don't know what became of knuckle-haired Ned. I do hope nobody else ever received the same treatment as myself, or were put off the way I was. And if they were, I hope they can find the strength in knowing People like this aren't worth dwelling over. I like to think that the others at the beginner's table in 1998 that day stuck with it and are still fans today, and that Ned got Lou Gehrig's disease, I don't know what that is, and that somebody released Bugsy back into the wild, where he can roam free and can continue to search for the precious. I have had the original fire reignited in the hobby since, with the help of some amazing YouTubers. Enough can't be said about yourself, North, when it comes to the level of support and encouragement I've heard you offer other people in this community. It's good to know there's people like you out there, mate. Keep doing what you're doing. Thanks again. Well, thank you for an amazing hobby nightmare, mate. Thank you very much. Okay. I think the main thing that hurt you there, because you seem to have, like, skated over Ned's involvement. Do you know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you realise there are dickheads out there. I think the main thing that hurt you there is that your mother didn't have your back. And your friends didn't have your back, you know? I'm in the same boat. I can take people being dickheads, I can just walk away. But when your friends don't have your back and your parents don't have your back, that's when it's, you know. There was a friend I had a while ago. If you don't want to hear a really personal story, click off the video now. It's of a sexual nature, so click off the video now if you don't want to hear this. It's fine. Back in the day, I was seeing a girl in university, and I really, really, really liked her. And you know, she was really, 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 you know, right up my street. You know, I, by my own admission, in the years before the year before university, I had literally no sexual partners at all, right? Because I'd had quite a dry spell. I'd been working my arse off to get money to go to university. So I had a girlfriend at the start of the year where I was going to university. Do you know what I mean? Like in the January, and I was going to university in the October, November. So all that time, I'd not had any partners at all. So I was on a bit of a dry spell for a single lad. And I'd had an MOT at my own mother's request. He said, "Listen, before you go to university, I know what happens at university. You're 24. You're older than them. You know, if you find another mature student or something, you have to go and get yourself checked out to make sure you're not carrying anything into university. And if you are, you know, you can get treated for it." She said, "I don't think you are, because you're a good lad, but like, just go and do this for me, please." And so I did, and I got the all clear, and it was great, wonderful stuff. Anyway, I went to university, and within a few months, I'd met this girl, and we were going great guns, and I really liked her, until one day I developed something of an issue down there. And I was very, very, very traumatized. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I found out when I went to the clinic that it was a transmitted disease. And obviously I must have gotten it from this girl. Not only that, the girl came with me because I told her about it, right? The girl came with me and was laughing and joking about it and things like that, you know, and whatever. And I was a bit like, okay, yeah, fine. I mean, you know, but I in my head, I was like, I'm kind of done with this girl now, because obviously she's sleeping around, and I thought we were dating, and now on the way to the clinic, she's like, no, we're dating, but we're not, like, exclusive though, are we? And I was like, yeah, that's what dating is. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know, so I got sorted out straight away, absolutely fine, no problem whatsoever. I always remember, like, the doctor, right, called Dr. Sanjay something. Please don't think I'm being a racist when I say this. This is literally what he did, right? He opened the door to the room where I was, and he said, "Somebody's been a naughty boy." And I was just like, I just started laughing, because I was like, no, I haven't done anything. And he goes, "Yes, they all say that when they come in here." And then when he read my file, what was going on, he was like, "Oh, actually, no, this isn't you. Yeah, okay, fair enough." And he told me, like, literally, it's just, don't feel guilty because you didn't give this to her; she gave this to you. And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, what you have is symptomless in females. It doesn't show symptoms in females. So as soon as you get it, you get symptoms as a man, bang, straight away. Whereas a female, you know, she doesn't get symptoms." So he said, "Yeah, now that you've got it, have you been with anybody else apart from her?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, there you go, you know." So anyway, it got sorted out straight away, and everything was fine. I split up with her, obviously, afterwards. Said, look, this isn't going to work out. You know, you've been sleeping around. That's not what I'm here for. You know, I'm here to date people, sure, but to date them exclusively. And then if things don't work out, I'll move on to somebody else. But I'm not here to just willy-nilly. You know, I'm 24. I'm past that shit now. And essentially, she took her on the chin. Said, yeah, fine, no problem, no problem. Years later, I meet this girl again, and she's doing quite well for herself. She's doing okay. And a friend of mine is in a dry spell. And so she expresses an interest in him. So I say, you know what? Get together, no problem. You know, yeah, no problem. You guys date away. I warned him what had happened to me. You know, I warned him that this is what happened to me. So if you get any sort of issues, that's why. You know, make sure you're very, very careful. And lo and behold, he's talking to her, and she blames me for giving her something at university, right, to him. Basically, she lies, because she was told by the doctors in front of me that she gave it to me. And he believes her. And it comes back to me and says, you're really out of order for saying that she gave it to you. And blah, blah, blah. I was like, mate, she did. And I even took him to the fucking internet and showed him what she had. Right? Told him, there and then, it's a scientific fucking impossibility for me to give it to her without her getting symptoms. Right? It's just impossible. Right? And what kind of a guy would admit to, like, not sleeping with anybody for that long? You know? She's lying. And he still went, yeah, okay. Right? That hurt a lot. So what I mean by that is, when your friend doesn't have your back, and you know you're in the right, that hurts like shit. And I never looked at that man in the same way again. Never. Because you took this woman's word over mine. This woman that you hardly know. Because you want to get your end away. You know? That really hurt. So, trust me when I say, I know what you mean. When the one thing that really affected you in the story was that your mother didn't have your back. Your friends didn't have your back. They believed the dickhead. They took the dickhead side over yours. That's a real kick in the nuts. Pun intended. Right? Yeah, but there you go. And everybody that I knew at university met somebody like that and went through a similar thing, where they had to go to the clinic and get sorted out. But not all of them had to go to their friend and have them believe the other person. Anyway, it does hurt, so don't do it. If your bro says something to you, take him seriously, man. Take him seriously and have their back. They always say blood's thicker than water. Well, it is, because if you're my friend, you are my blood. You're one of my friends. And I'm going to believe you over somebody else until somebody gives me a reason not to. But to blindly follow somebody else and what they say over your friend, or even worse, your children, or siblings, that's a dickhead thing to do. And that's really, really, really painful. And it will stick with that other person for a long time. Right? As it stuck with our main man here. Right? The fact that his mother, you know, Ned being Ned, I'm getting the sense here that Ned being Ned didn't really bother him. It just didn't bother him at all. The fact that his friends didn't have his back and his mother didn't have his back, that's what got to him. And it stayed with him until now. So hopefully this hobby nightmare's gone some way to you filing that away in your brain, mate. Now you know you're not alone. Because I've gone through multiple occasions of this myself. And I'm sure, if you have as well, and you've listened to the end of the video, go in the comment section down below and tell me about it. I'd love to read it. So would Tom, I think. Anyway, I love you all long time. I will speak to you very, very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll see you on Monday, or maybe before, if you're lucky. We'll see. Love you all long time. See you then. Bye now.